Hi, everybody. I hope you guys can see me well. Happy Thursday. Good morning, good day, good evening, wherever you're at, wherever, whatever time zone you're in. I'm so happy that you're joining us. You're in the right place for your weekly mindset, belief, laws of the universe, and combined in this very, very high tailored, niched strategy that wraps your genius into your own five-figure offer, with which you can then go and create your own six-figure leaps within weeks, as we have seen with my clients, within months, as we have seen with my clients. And I couldn't be prouder and happier to have this topic today with you, because this is where it all begins, right? And there's like a longer way going about creating your new premium clients, whether it's like 10K level, 20K level, 50K level, 100K level. And there's like this shorter path where you actually get to kind of skip over some of the steps. Not to say that you don't are not aware of them, right? It's not to say that you don't utilize what you already know and you're an expert in, but it does mean that you know better, and that you're tired of just kind of like repeating and kind of like um, going about your goals in traditional way, basically, kind of like one step at a time. And you start more entering into this thinking and believing and acting and behaving also in terms of like quantum leaping, quantum consciousness, quantum type of results. And that kind of like starts to create this your own unique vortex or universe, where not only you but also your clients then consequentially have amazing results in like overnight, basically, right? I just got another text from a client, I think 2 days ago, where she was like, oh my god, I don't know what's happening, but all of my clients are going crazy. They're having this crazy ass results, and tangible and intangible ones, and they both matter equally, right? So for those of you who are not that familiar with me, my name is Helena Papaj. I am the co-founder, or I'm the founder and the CEO of Success Matrix, which is a company that actually makes sure that your signature program is structured, and that your method of work is based on your genius, which is something that it's then able and up to you to evolve through your lifetime and through your own work of like experiencing and providing your own method of work is so precious, and so like something that I've been so passionate about for years. And it's kind of like the only way where I could kind of like help my clients, which are come from all different types of like expertise and niches and energy working and therapeutic like backgrounds, and you name it, they've done it, right? And so when they come to me with this like one question, they're like, how can I make all of this that I have, how can I make it work for myself, right? And it's like, how can I create an offer that it's actually going to make sense? How can I price it properly? How much and what goes into where? And then also the first question after we get started with all of that is like, where are my clients? And usually that's like a very frustrating question. It comes from frustration and lack and like fear, and kind of like that kind of like all too familiar to all of us lack mentality of like, I'm creating now this, I've been investing at like five figures with you, like what is happening, where is my client, right? And so the thing is that by the exact time, like from the intention, from the energy of lack that you're posing that question, even like, let's just go back into neuroscience a little bit, right? So basically, where are my clients at? It's kind of like you are saying you don't see them, you don't actually see any improvement. Like it's not like your belief, but also like your emotional state of being is one of like disbelief, and kind of like, even if there's like small inklings and daily kind of like signs that you're working in the right direction, your mind will just go like, no, like I'm not doing good enough, this is not enough, like that person or 50 new people or 500 new people in my like that's nothing, like that doesn't speak of anything, that's too little, it's not enough, blah blah blah. So it all comes from basically what we call lack mentality. And while you are in lack mentality, it basically means you're going into this beautiful, well equipped, fully, like, how do you say, like it's full, like the shop is full of stuff, and you keep walking, between the shelves and looking at it and not seeing it and being in your own kind of like world of lack and going, no, this is not good enough. No, that won't do it. No, this is not, this is not for me. Oh, this is from that person. Or, where's my product, basically, right? Or where's my, person, what you're saying, basically, right? And the thing is, while, somebody else who has this more like abundant mentality and mentality from kind of like, clients are everywhere. My clients, I can sign them in a shop. I can sign them in Starbucks. I can sign them, I can find them in, social media, but I can also just kind of like attract them from wherever they're at right now, right? They can come into my email through millions of other, ways, basically, right? And so this is kind of like the shift in belief, and also then, followed by different action, right? Because when we are this in this belief, we're going to take a really struggly long path where we have to kind of like figure it out, and where we're like writing like crazy, and where we're like kind of like testing and trialing and tweaking and kind of like figuring it out with our mental like energy, and we're like so tired, right? Because it's like it takes, it can take really long time, and you can put in a lot of effort, and by the end of the day, if it's not really truly connected to, who your genius or so client is, it's still gonna feel like you don't really have like that deeper unconscious soul level connection with your clients, right? And at this level, it does matter, right? Because it does matter who you're spending your time with in a matter of like, 6 months working intimately with somebody who is not congruent with your values, or who is not respectful of your work really, or who is not showing up, or who is not paying, or who is not being coachable. It really takes a lot from your own kind of like energy, right? And so we want to be really like cautious and careful in the best way possible to create that belief before we're even like offering anything, before we're even like actually talking about it, because it's all energetics anyhow, right? So the moment you start changing your energy around that, the moment you start changing your, belief, your vibration basically around who you are, now available for, what kind of permission you need to give yourself, but also like, for the levels of success that you want, and you gonna stand and kind of like own yourself, so that your clients can achieve that no matter how uncomfortable it gets for you, right? Because we're talking about ego shedding, we're talking about working with your own, insecurities, we're talking about you getting in this like really intimate relationship where all your fears are going to come up, all the, doubts and disbeliefs and all your negative projections, they're going to come up, right? And while you're delivering your expertise, because you're an amazing fucking expert, right, you're still going to have to do the work. It's kind of like when you get into like a love relationship, right? Like you have so much love, you can give, you can this and that, but like 3 months in, 6 months in, all of your most like, you know suppressed or, negative or whatever it is, like projections and beliefs about relationships, about love, about marriage, if you will, about men, about partners, about sexuality, about this and that, family systems or whatever it is, they're going to start showing up, and somebody has to do the work, right? So all of the stuff that keeps popping up is actually all the gifts, right? Because you have now opportunities, and you have availability, and it's now being presented to you, even though it's usually very confusing and sometimes painful and all of the things, right? uh, it's now being presented to you, so now you get to actually transform that, mud into gold, right? Because that's the work that we do, right? And so while you're kind of like allowing yourself to become like going from not being a match for your, let's say, new mate or your new ideal client, and while you're like transitioning into that like, confident, fully available, magnetic and attracting, the right people in the right time with the right problem that they're facing right now, and you have the most like instinctual and intuitive solutions for them, and they're just like wowed by you, and you save them time and you save them money and you save them energy, and they love working with you and keep resigning with you because they actually value what you bring to the table. And the same with relationships, or the same with your kids, or the same with like your job, whatever it is that you're doing otherwise, projects, right? So this is kind of like where we get into this kind of like you cannot receive what you're still believing that it's like lacking in your life. So for sure the belief needs to change, and like energy needs to change with that for sure, and then your language is going to change, right? So that's what one of the exercises that I often give to my clients, which is usually a necessity, is they need to commit to just stop talking about what is not there yet. Literally like that. They need to stop complaining to me. They need to stop complaining to themselves, to their mates, to their friends, to their 50 of best friends, to the whole universe. Like, oh, my whatever client is not here yet. Because that's kind of like how you start to focus in, and you start to focus and you start to build a different momentum, and you go from lacking and you go from really struggling and kind of like efforting, and you go into from like mental work, and you go into like energetics, which is not easier. It's actually the most difficult focus that a human can hold, but it's so much worth it, because then, what people call magic, but it's like, for me, it's just very intentional focus. And you have to do it in your own way that works for you, right? So if you can hold that focus for a specific period of time, and more of the times during the day, and you're super focused on it, and it's kind of like with this really wonderful kind of like loving and giving and kind of like curious and kind of like detached energy that just loves to give and just loves to provide solution and just loves to sign people and just trust that everything is gonna, whatever is presented to you in terms of like problems or clients or whatever comes up in the sessions, you are so able to handle that, right? And that's the proper energy that all of a sudden people start vibing with that, and they're like, I don't know what it is, but you're so yummy and you're so tasty, and I don't even know what you're talking about, but your energy is so speaking to me. I want to work with you. And that's where you get clients who don't even pose all the like 150,000 questions when they like start working with you, because the trust is built like on the cellular level. And the values kind of like really nicely, can coexist. And usually you will find that, these are the people that have different lifestyles, but very similar like beliefs and attitudes and how they want to like, be in the world and be in their family system, or be, what kind of like human they want to be, and how much they value, self-love, or how much they value universe, or how much, spirituality they allow, and, how much or how they interpret wealth and what they want to do with it, and how they want to help other people's. So it's so much more than just like creating like a marketing avatar and being like, where does your person shop, and which brands does she value, because that's, for me, sorry, just like very superficial. And it also kind of like leaves you with this taste that you're like a consumer to somebody. I just had this experience recently, and I was talking to my client. I invested like 5 figures into this like pretty extensive group program, which I rarely do, right? But I did because I was curious, and I was always kind of ready to try new ways. But the thing is, they were so good with marketing, right? And with everything that they did in terms of like, because people are so good with marketing, they're so good with like how to present and how to sell and how to talk to you and how to have like a sequence of things, how to actually guide you through like a psychological like cycle of a buyer, right? And so I went with it, right? And I was like, really like keen on, what is, where is this coming from and where is this going? And, I was like super excited about like all the results that I'm going to be getting from this program, right? But the thing is, the moment I got into the actual program, not that the as I said, the main coach delivery, it was still, spot on and all of that. but it just felt like I immediately became this like consumer, and I was treated as a consumer, as one of the thousands, right, and as one of the hundreds, and like kind of like my results, or whatever they call accountability, was for me non-existent, right? So, and it was just presented in a very different way than what was then actually delivered, right? And this is something that we're very much like a no-go. That's not how you want to treat your premium clients, not when they invest 5 figures with you or 6 figures with you. You want to make sure that they feel like, not that you're there for their every like caprice. That's not at all what we're talking about, but definitely you want to be there and catch when they're having the moment of like where they can actually experience the biggest transformations, right? And be very mindful and thoughtful and connected with them, right? And so this is why I always preach this, that one-on-one work, and or like very, very small intimate circle type of work in a group. If you want to be doing group, which can be wonderful for some people, right? It's like that's where the actual work is, because you have to have that capacity to actually kind of like be with the people that you invited in. You have to have the capacity to care and to like bother, and to and to be excited about the work that you're doing with them, and not just make them like feel like they're like one of the numbers, right? And so this was like a huge disappointment in terms of like what was marketed as, and what was like really skillfully marketing, kind of like they were like presenting, and then what was actually happening behind the doors, and what kind and what level of delivery it was, right? And I'm just kind of like, it was a good lesson, right? And it also made me appreciate so much more, and kind of like price my work back up, right? Because it was just kind of like showing me that the work that we put in, like me and my clients, the work that we do behind the scenes and behind the closed doors and everything, that has so much value, right? And we're all experts, and we all fucking care, and we show up, right? And so that's like immense value that you cannot even like pay with money, right? And so all the engagement and all the kind of like how much you want to be up to somebody, and how much you want to be kind of like setting them up for success, is going to be so much coming from your kind of like your own soul excitement. And that's why it really matters where your belief and disbelief is. And it's fine when you're like working on something, and be kind to yourself, and be persisting, and be kind of like insisting that your lack belief changes, because it can change in like an instant. And you can go from, oh my god, like I don't even know what I'm doing, I'm so confused, I don't know why, what am I like, why am I even here, blah blah blah. And with one like allowing thought, everything else can open, because the whole paradigm can shift, right? And with one allowing thought, with one sentence, with one like something that we can have a conversation about it on a session, and you just go, oh, something just like ripped me apart, and I was just like in this new reality instantly, right? That's what you want to be offering on your sessions, right? Those like wow and aha, and those like afterwards, like hours and days after the session, when you have like this clients just praising the effect of the session. That's what we're all about, like when we do the work, right? So this is kind of like what I was experiencing. And also kind of like to be gentle, and to be kind to yourself, and to be also giving yourself some grace when you're going and shifting and transitioning from this like lack belief into, where are my clients at? Why are they not showing up? I'm doing the work, right? And when you're like transitioning towards that confidence, uh, this is who I am, this is what I'm helping you with, we're in this together. And that transition, it takes a little while, or it can be instant. You can be like, I'm receiving this new belief now, I'm changing my belief now, I'm gonna shift my beliefs now, and I'm gonna be available for a different thought, available for a different belief. I need to become available for a different experience. Sometimes we need to kind of like become available also, as just kind of like more feminine way of doing things, is like your mind needs to become available, and needs to feel safe, that it's like, hey, I get to have a new belief today. How awesome is that, right? I get to kind of like ditch something that was not serving me into something that is now serving me. How amazing is that, right? And you get to do that because you have this brilliant brain and intellect and mind that is like super conscious, conscious, and subconscious, right? And that all gets to play in. And how fucking magnificent that is. Sorry, my language today. I'm just a little bit on fire, right? And so this is kind of like where you can see, because I was just talking to somebody and he was like on a dating app, because I've been having fun with his dating apps, for the last year. And he was just kind of like, not complaining, but just, stating a fact. He's like only like very committed and very like, women who look for serious relationships, ever like reach out to me. Like, haha, as in, how funny, because, we heard so many, different stories about, people just looking for a hookup. And this is like a relationship kind of like dating site. And then I was thinking about it and I was like looking at his, pitch. And I was like, yeah, but that's because, your pitch is very much in the language of understanding your woman and also speaking in the language of we, right? So he was picturing this image of like, when we get old, this is what we're going to do together. And you're going to be happy that you haven't clicked on that fake profile of somebody who just looked handsome, but you guys didn't have anything to talk about. And we will. And that was like, it was so like intriguing because he was putting himself into the reality of a woman who is going to be there with him, right? And so that was super smart. And then most, like 98% of people just speaks in the language of, I, right? And most of the guys just speak in the language of like, I'm amazing, I'm this, I'm that, or even, oh, I don't feel so good, I'm so lonely, which is, the worst. Like in terms of like, what do you want to attract? What are you saying, But so most of people, speak the language I, right? And so it's the same when we're trying to work your new way of clients. They think in terms of like we, because they want somebody who thinks in terms of like we. We want to be working together with somebody who gets a we story, and a successful story is always going to be a we story because it's going to be a small team. It's going to be you and the coach. It's going to be you and the mentor. It's going to be you and your, whoever, like social media person, right? It's going to be in terms of like we, and also how firm is your vision of that we, and how long, like how, how far, let's put it like that, how far is that vision of you, right? Of you and that client and their success, basically, and the success of both of you partnering up. Do you know what I mean? Because it's such a beautiful like analogy, right? It makes so much sense, right? And so this is where you then know that you're working, you're going to be working, you're talking, and you're marketing something that it's of extra value to somebody, right? And that shift in the language is also, it goes from this like lack mentality of like, I need this and this and this to happen for me. And then when you're transitioning into this kind of like allowing and believing and kind of like abundance mentality, is like, we get to do this because we do, right? And because things will appear and things will happen and we will work at it and we will put our effort every day. So of course it will, work. And of course we will be massively successful, right? And of course we're going to be there for each other. And of course I'm going to be there for you. And of course you're going to be there for me as well, right? So that's big, huge, energetically holding space difference. Okay? So if this makes sense to you, and if you need support in your like energetics, but also mindset, and also like how do you want to package your genius, and you're curious about what all goes into that like 5-figure structure of like work, and how would you want to go about creating your own intellectual property with it, right? Like, let's talk, DM me or DM my social media person, and we can have a proper conversation around it. It's only going to take us like 30 minutes. The link is going to be below in the video. And until then, practice your shift, belief shifting, because it's so amazing and it changes your whole reality. Okay. I love you. Take good care of yourselves, and I will be talking to you next week. Bye.